This year's election is going to be a little different.
Instead of one election day, we now have a voting season.
That special time of year when polls can open weeks before Election Day.
When your mailbox can become a voting booth.
When how you vote is just as important as who you vote for.
How, when, and where to cast your ballot depends on your state.
'Tis the season to be prepared.
This year, plan your vote.
Welcome to The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Friday, October the 16th, 2020. On this episode of The Politicrat, a conversation with Harris County, Texas clerk Chris Hollins on his efforts to make voting easier for everybody in Harris County, a county of 4.5 million people. Plus, a look back at Joe Biden's town hall last night in Pennsylvania, and a couple of words about the media and the way it covered Donald Trump in his town hall last night. That and more coming up next. With me on the Politicrat podcast today is a young man who I think, quite frankly, I don't know if he's met him, but I think John Lewis would be very proud of him for what he's doing in his county in Texas. I am talking about the Harris County clerk, and his name is Chris Hollins, a young man who is a Morehouse man. So that means he's already a leader right there. And is also a young man who got his law degree from Harvard and got his from Yale, and got his a business degree from Harvard. So a Morehouse man can't be wrong. And I just want to introduce this Morehouse man to you all right now, Mr. Chris Hollins, Harris County Clerk in Texas. Thank you very much for being here on the Politicrat podcast today. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's an honor to be on here chatting with you, so I look forward to it.
I have to say, sir, one thing that I just went over this statistic in my mind. As of late last night, in Harris County, Texas alone, since early voting began on Tuesday, around 400,000 people have already voted?
That's correct. We nearly doubled our previous record for turnout on the first day of an election day. We had 128,000 people come out on the first day alone in person. And to put that in perspective, if you went to the day before, the state of Georgia had its first day of early voting, and the entire state of Georgia had 128,000 voters. And so we did that just here in Greater Houston, and that's continued to take place. We've topped 100,000 every single day in person, and then we have tens of thousands of mail ballots coming in every day. And so we're just excited to have so many voters, regardless of their party, regardless of where they come from, just exercising their constitutional right to vote here in Harris County.
And what strikes me as well, Clerk Hollins, is the fact that you are doing things in a 21st century way in Texas. Who knew? I mean, my goodness me, the kinds of things you're doing are innovative, but they are straightforward. And you have done some things that you would expect in the 21st century for people to do. You're doing things like drive-in voting, I believe it is. You have a plan, or you're doing or implementing 24-hour voting. Why isn't this happening? Oh, I mean, I don't mean to sound naive, but why isn't this happening everywhere in your state? I mean, I know why it's not, but it's kind of a rhetorical question. Can you talk about this and about those efforts?
Yes. as you mentioned, I mean, everything that we're doing is pretty straightforward. But when it comes to doing this for an election, it comes off as cutting edge. And look, we're excited to be on the leading edge of innovation.
I think we lost you there for a second, sir. I don't know if you can hear me, but unfortunately, I'm having an issue hearing you at the moment. Can you repeat again what you said about it being cutting edge? Because unfortunately, you cut out a little bit there, sir.
Okay, are you able to hear me?
Now I can, just about, yes.
All right, my connection doesn't seem to be the best.
Okay, I can hear you now, though. Okay.
All right, so why don't we just continue normally, but then if we have more issues, I might try to take my video off or something of that nature.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay.
Okay. No, so just to start us back here, what we've been doing, has been highlighted by many as being innovative, being cutting edge. And look, we're excited about what we're doing. We're excited that we are on the leading edge of innovation as it relates to voting in this country. But many of the things that we're doing are things that all of us have seen and experienced in our own lives for many years. I mean, how long have drive-thrus existed, for example, right? We drive through to get, our fast food. We drive through to pick up our prescriptions at our local pharmacy. This is not a new it has to be operationalized. And, frankly, many government offices, innovation is not the strong suit. But in addition to that, many places across this country, including Texas, have laws related to elections that stymie innovation. And frankly, make it more difficult for voters to exercise their franchise. And so what we've done is, anytime I'm told that we can't do something, my immediate reaction is, why not? And let's talk through that, and let's truly examine the Texas election code as it stands today to determine what we can do and what we cannot do. And, just to give you an example on drive-through voting, the Texas election code calls that all voting must take place inside a structure. Well, okay, so we're going to set up structures in parking lots. They're, massive tents that you would see at a tailgate or something of that nature. And frankly, now that we're seeing these across the country, anyone who's done a drive-in COVID test has seen this. You go into a parking lot, there's a bunch of tents set up, and there's an operation that you go through to have that test done, and then done in a convenient and safe manner. And we've translated that directly to voting, and voting in a convenient and safe manner. And nearly 10% of our voters in the past 3 days have cast their votes using these drive-through voting centers, and they have been, universally applauded by the voters. And the question, as you kind of alluded to, is why didn't we do this earlier? Why is this the first time this has ever happened? And so things like that, like 24-hour voting, again, our pharmacies, our Walmarts, they've been open for 24 hours forever. It's not a new thing. Of course, all the election workers and, there are budgetary things that you need to take into account. And so, we said, look, this has never been done before in Texas. To our knowledge, it has been done in Las Vegas previously, but of course, everything's 24 hours there. But we said we're going to do this on a single night. We're going to publicize it so people know the day that it's happening. But our shift workers, those folks who are working in our Texas Medical Center right now to save lives, the folks who are working at those grocery stores, stocking shelves and not getting off till 2 or 3 in the morning. Harris County has a huge industrial center. So folks who are working in plants and factories on these shifts that get off at odd hours, or anybody else, and for whatever reason, if voting at 2 a.m. or midnight or what have you is the most convenient way for you to vote, let's give you an opportunity to do that. plain and simple. And so we'll see how many people choose to vote in that manner. We also have other nights where we've extended voting until 10 p.m. For similar reasons. But our goal is to protect the right to vote for everyone and to make voting accessible and safe for everyone. And I think that we've done that.
And I think you've done it so very well. Now, of course, you've been asked various questions about the court challenges, and sadly, in the state of Texas, not surprisingly, and in other states, there have been these continuous challenges. Last I heard, Governor Abbott had challenged a neighboring county of yours, Travis County, or he plans to do so again. The court challenges that he's made to Harris County, is he still doing that, or has he relented? What's the story on that for people who may not be aware of what's going on?
So whether it's from our governor, our attorney general, the Secretary of State's office, which reports to the governor, or any other groups, we're getting sued on almost a daily basis, multiple times a week. And these suits are baseless, they're frivolous, and they're trying to do two things. One is if they can tie us into court and get the court to issue a stay on an action, they can win by losing. As long as they draw out the legal battle, then they get to keep, these. They get to prevent access to the polls for thousands and thousands of voters for the length of that court battle. So that's number one. Number two is that they're trying to confuse voters because when they file a lawsuit and it's filed by the governor, for example, of course the news is going to cover that, and then those people who watch the news are going to look at that, and then they're going to have questions. Oh, is drive-through voting legal, as an example? Because there have been multiple lawsuits that try to claim that drive-through voting is illegal. And so our office fields calls. We're very active on social media, proactively speaking with the press to share these messages and bring comfort to the voters. Because anything that shares information with voters, accurate information, that provides peace of mind to the voters, that's ultimately going to encourage them to take part in our democracy, and it's ultimately going to result in more people casting their ballots. But their effort, of course, is the opposite. Any information that we can keep away from voters, or misinformation that we can share with voters, or confusion that we can stir up, or fear. When we claim that we might be able to charge people with felonies for voting in a certain way. When we claim with no facts whatsoever that voting by mail is an unsecure way to vote and that it's liable to result in fraud at a massive scale. There is zero data that is out there that supports that argument. But the more you say it, the more people hear it, and that starts to sink in, and ultimately will result in fewer people casting their ballots. And so we're fighting that battle on a daily basis. But we know that we're on the right side of history. We know that we are fighting the right fight on behalf of every single voter here in Harris County. We have over 2.4 million, but also every voter in Texas, and more broadly, every voter in this country. Because the more that we can do to shed light on these issues, the more that we can do to say, hey, look what happens when you make voting simple and straightforward. Other election administrators are going to have to take those cues, and sooner or later, these things should be available to all Americans.
One last thing, and I really appreciate that you answered that, because I was going to ask you, what are you doing to counter all these kinds of disinformation, lies, and confusion tactics, and you've just answered it. So I appreciate that. For those people who are listening, and people do listen to this podcast in various places all over, and some of them are in Texas, and I presume that some of them would be in Harris County for sure as well. So for those who have not yet cast a vote, or who may not yet have casted a vote, and who is in Texas, but particularly in your county, sir, what kind of advice would you give them? And can you talk also maybe social media things that they need to be clued into if they're on social media, please?
Absolutely. Well, you can follow us at harrisvotes.com. And of course on social media at Harris Votes on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can follow me personally at CG Hollins. And so there you'll get a bunch of great voting messages interspersed with pictures of my kids. But, you know, we want everyone who's listening to make a plan to vote and make sure that your friends, your family, your neighbors are also making a plan to vote. Whether that's in person during the early voting period, if your jurisdiction has early voting, because some don't, whether that's in person on election day, or whether that's voting by mail, we just want you to vote and have your voice heard at this critical time in our country. Here in Harris County, if you go to harrisvotes.com/locations, you'll be able to find any of the locations that are near you, along with their approximate wait time, so you can choose to vote at the place with the shortest line. You can track your mail ballot at harrisvotes.com/tracking to know that we received it. And we're just happy. You know, we've tripled the number of early voting centers here in Harris County just since 2016. So it's 3 times as likely that a voting center is near your house, near your kid's school, near your place of business. And again, we're just trying to make this process as simple and as straightforward for the voters as we can. And we encourage everyone who's registered to vote to come out, make your voice heard, and take part in our democracy, because it is not a spectator sport. It takes all of us to be engaged. It takes all of us to be educated and active and informed. And ultimately, it requires all of us to choose the leaders who are going to make choices that affect our lives now and for generations to come.
Absolutely. And Clerk Hollins, you mentioned locations. It's harrisvotes.com/locations or location?
Locations.
With
but
an
I
S.
imagine both of them work, to be honest. We
Right.
probably have the alias.
Right. Well, I want to say thank you very much for spending the time here on the Politicrat podcast. And by the way, I want to say congratulations to your Houston Astros last night.
Hey, we're excited. We were down 3-0, which is a big hole to be in. I think that's only, a comeback from 3-0 has happened once in history when the Boston Red Sox did it. But if anybody can do it, it's these Houston Astros. We're excited about them and crossing our fingers for 2 more.
All the very best of luck with that too. And thank you very much, Clerk Chris Hollins, Harris County Clerk Chris Hollins, for being here on the Politicrat today. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thanks, Omar. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. The democratic process is about getting people involved. Yes, there's work to be done, and as you heard there with Harris County Clerk Hollins, there are people, as you know, and I've talked about this a lot here, who want to discourage and confuse and get people not to vote. And quite frankly, as a result of those efforts, which I think are being defeated and being met very solidly, and the way I can tell you that that is happening is because just look at the lines of people all over the country, in states that are predominantly Democratic, in some states that are largely Republican. There are large, long lines. And I know the news media will say, oh, well, this is an evidence of voter suppression. This may not just be about enthusiasm. It may be about voter suppression. Yes. There's certainly some of those lines are born out of places like some of the ones that Clerk Hollins and I just talked about in Texas and elsewhere, where their goal is to suppress. So yeah, when you have places where there's only one place in the entire state, in the county of your state, per county, only one place per county where you can drop off your mail-in ballot, yeah, that you're going to see long caravans of lines of people in their cars sitting and waiting for 4 hours just to get to that drop box. You're going to see long lines of people standing in parts of Georgia where, you've got a governor, Brian Kemp, who, doesn't want people to vote. He used to be the Secretary of State of Georgia, and he stole votes from Stacey Abrams, let's be honest, while he was also running against her for the governorship of that state of Georgia. So yeah, this is a very real thing. Yes, voter suppression is real. But the way you defeat voter suppression is to do what people are doing right now. They're voting. They are voting, and they are voting in massive numbers. And this ain't just about the voter suppression. This is about people who are tired, who have been fed up, who have been cooped up, who have been indoors, who have had enough of the garbage, enough of their lives being ruined, being sidelined, being ended. People have had enough. And that is what you are seeing. They've had enough of the lies. They've had enough of the gaslighting. They've had enough of the absolute propaganda and destruction of this country by Donald Trump and the Republicans who have enabled him, who voted to acquit him in that sham trial that McConnell had back in February. And some of these same people who voted to acquit this guy are now running for Senate, for re-election. That's what they're running for. And they're running scared. You know why? Because people have awoken. And they know. And they don't forget. This year, voters do not have a short memory. Why? Because they're indoors. They've been indoors for 7-8 months. And they turn on that television. And if they're not watching Fox News, they are knowing very clearly the toll of the lies, of the destruction, the gaslighting, the propaganda, the deconstruction of the administrative state. And it is right there for everybody to see. You've got Donald Trump telling you shouldn't vote. You've got Donald Trump slowing down the post office through Louis DeJoy, his crony donor. You've got him demeaning the service of military in this country. Once upon a time, the Republicans would never do that. They love to wave the flag and make themselves synonymous with the military. But the simple fact is that when you've got a Republican named Donald Trump, who is a dictator, who is saying that American military are losers and suckers, that is an attempt to deconstruct the administrative state. You've got an Attorney General, Bill Barr, who is criticizing his own Department of Justice and the people who serve in it. He's calling the people that he is the Attorney General over, the leader of, the top cop, and I hate that term. He's calling people in his own department underlings and Montefiore school people and demeaning them, lowering the morale of the Justice Department. This is what I call an inside job. This is what I call the deconstruction of the administrative state. We have seen it with the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. And what has been going on there? We've seen this in lots of agencies. The FDA is being compromised. The firing of these inspectors general over the course of 5 weeks back in April, in fact, maybe April into May, and even, I think, more recently than that. And I've just scratched the tip of the surface here. I've just scratched the surface. Just the veneer of the surface I have just scratched. So please get out there and vote. And you've got to vote now as if Donald Trump is the enemy. Because he is the enemy. He is the enemy to this country because he's destroying the country. And nobody who claims to love America would be doing the things that Donald Trump is doing to America. Yes, those pictures of him hugging the flag are not really pictures of him at CPAC the Conservative Political Action Committee, who have their yearly, convention. That's not him hugging the flag. That's him strangling the flag. He is choking it. And it's a metaphor for what he's actually doing to the country. So I really do want people to understand that that is what is happening here. But I don't think that you really need to be told any longer, because millions of people have already voted in this country. 22 million people have already voted here in the United States in this election season. Get on board with that 22 million. Go and vote early. As I said to you, and I've said to you so many times, if we vote early and vote in droves, we will win. You will see a change in the White House. You will see a change in the Senate. It will be controlled by the Democratic Party. You will see a consolidation in the House. Democratic control of that. You will see changes in the state houses across this land. You will see it. You can be it by voting, by getting involved, by phone banking. There are some people out there. If you know someone out there, and I joked about this, well, not really joked. I said this on Twitter last night, at the Popcorn REEL. Show me an undecided voter when it comes to Biden versus Trump, and I'll show you a troll, a bot, or a liar. But it turns out that there are still a few undecided people out there. I'd say now it's probably around 5 or 6%. That is still, in my view, it's a sizable number. Those are the people that need to be persuaded. If you know people who are saying things like, well, I don't know if I should vote for Biden, or, well, I don't know if I should vote at all, make sure that you put on your persuasion hat and that you listen first and foremost, and most importantly, you listen to them when they say this, and when you ask them why, that you listen to them and hear them out. And then once you've done that, and you really have listened to them, as opposed to just wait for them to finish talking so that you can talk, once you've really listened to those people who say to you that they don't know if they're going to even vote, they don't know if they're even going to vote for Biden, that few who are still saying that, once you've listened to them, really listened, make sure that you tell them why they should vote for Joe Biden, why they should vote in this election, but why they should vote for Joe Biden, why they must vote for Joe Biden. Many of these individuals who are saying this are people under the age of 35. In fact, one of them was part of the Joe Biden town hall last night in Philadelphia. And what I'm going to be doing for the rest of this episode is playing you clips from last night's Joe Biden town hall. And I'll be talking about a couple of other things after that, but these are the clips that you didn't see on your news or on the recap shows last night. Most of these clips that you're going to be hearing are clips about the issues. And Joe Biden, by the way, did an excellent job last night talking about the issues and answering the questions of voters in Pennsylvania, some Republicans, some Democrats, some who voted for Trump, some who didn't vote for Trump, some who are leaning to Trump, some who are leaning to Joe Biden, some who are, don't know if they should vote, like this young black man, this young brother. And what I'm going to do next, to come out of this next break, is play you this clip. And it's an incredible clip. It really is. You have to listen to this. And it runs about 7 minutes. because you hear the question from this young brother, young black man, who doesn't know if he's really going to vote at all. And quite frankly, begins, and you'll hear it, begins with this kind of reference to what Joe Biden said to Charlemagne, the God. Remember that whole thing that happened in the Breakfast Club back in, I think, April or May of this year? I think it was around May, whenever it was, back earlier in the year. And he said, man, if you don't vote for me, if you vote for Trump, you ain't black. Remember that whole thing? And I criticized Joe Biden at the time, and some people did. And I think Joe Biden apologized for that and said he was sorry. So I have moved on from that. But there is a reality that there are, as much as I may say otherwise on Twitter, there are still some people who are actually undecided. Far less than last time, but there still are some nonetheless. And this is an election where I don't think a person can afford to be undecided on. But you've got to listen to this clip. I'm going to play it coming out of the break. And he mentions, the questioner says, well, yeah, besides you ain't black, what else can you offer? What else, you know? And I thought that was a really snarky thing that the young brother said. And some of the questioners, I have to say, were a little bit curious at that town hall. Most were not. Most I thought were pretty good. But I noticed that the two black men that I saw two of the black men, because the first person who asked Joe Biden a question was a black man, an attorney in Pennsylvania somewhere. I forgot where in the Pennsylvania area, Philadelphia area. He is an attorney. But after him, there were these two black men in particular who said that one of whom said he was a Democrat, but asked, well, if you lose, Joe, what are you going to be doing to convince President Trump that he's that he should form a more perfect union? I mean, and he said that he was a Democrat. Now, that's how he was introduced, at least. And it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. I mean, I just think, now you may disagree with me. I think that's a strange question. I don't necessarily think it's a bad question. I just think it's a strange one. A black man who is a Democrat. Now, here I am, perhaps stereotyping, right? A black man who is introduced by George Stephanopoulos as a Democrat, who asks a question like that. With everything that's going on in this country this year alone, that's the question that he asked. Okay, well, whatever. It makes me suspicious that he's a Democrat, quite frankly. Really unusual question, I think. But you have a right to ask a question in this country. At least we still do, if we want to have a country where we can still ask questions of people in power. Because voting for Donald Trump would not be that route. You'd be voting for not asking a question at all, not having health care, not having Obamacare, not having a right to choose. But, again, a lot of this is about apathy. I think a lot of this with the undecideds, the few that are left, is about apathy, feeling that they've not been heard, because both parties have done a terrible job of trying to reach out to, I think, black male voters. I mean, I think the Democrats have done a better job, but it's not as good as it could be. And that's why I think you had, quite frankly, the question that I'm going to play you right after this break.
Welcome back to our town hall with Joe Biden. We're going to get a question now from Cedric Humphrey. He's a student from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, progressive Democrat.
Don't jump, Cedric. You look like you're way up there.
I'll be okay. Thank you, George. And good evening, former Vice President Biden.
Good evening.
Many people believe that the true swing demographic in this election will be black voters under the age of 30. Not because they'll be voting for Trump, but because they won't vote at all. I myself have had this exact same conflict. So my question for you then is, besides you ain't black, what do you have to say to young black voters who see voting for you as further participation in a system that continually fails to protect them?
Well, I say, first of all, as my buddy John Lewis said, it's a sacred opportunity and right to vote. You can make a difference. If young black women and men vote, you can determine the outcome of this election. Not a joke. You can do that. And the next question is, am I worthy of your vote? can I earn your vote? And the answer is there's two things I think that I care, and I've demonstrated I care about my whole career. One is, in addition to dealing with a criminal justice system to make it fair and make it more decent, we have to be able to put black Americans in a position to be able to gain wealth, generate wealth. And so you look at what that entails. It entails everything from early education. That's why I'm supporting making sure that we in Title I schools, as you know, schools with the least tax base to be able to support their schools. I increased the funding for them from $15 to $45 billion. That allows every teacher in that school to make up to $60,000. And the problem now is they're leaving the schools. They're not there. We're short about 1.5 million teachers, 1.25 million teachers. Number two, every 3-, 4-, and 5-year-old will go to school, not daycare, school. And what all the great universities, including the one you've gone to, go to, or went to, in fact, talks about in the last 8 years what's happened. What happens when you let them go to school, they make up rapidly whatever shortcoming they had in terms of their education prior to that. They have not heard as many words spoken, et cetera, et cetera. What happens is that the studies show that 58% will increase by 58% their chance of going all through 12 years of school and going through successfully. We'll also provide for the ability to bring in social workers and school psychologists. We have one school psychologist in America now for every 1,507 kids. It should be 1 to 500, not just in schools that are poor, but in all schools. Because we learned that, for example, drug abuse doesn't cause mental illness. Mental illness causes drug abuse, the failure to get hold of people and deal with their anxieties. In addition to that, I provide for $70 billion for HBCUs for them to be able to have the wherewithal to do what other universities can do, because they don't have the kind of foundational support they need. And so that would allow them, for example, like we did in our administration, the president allowed me to go down and we awarded a cybersecurity laboratory, ability to compete for a cybersecurity laboratory. The federal government spends billions of dollars a year on universities because they are the best kept secret, or where most of the major inventions come out of. And so that school now will be able to produce young black women and men who are going to go into a field of the future that's burgeoning, cybersecurity. And that's what's going to help a great deal. In addition to that, if you're a young man about to graduate, or you graduated from school and you want to own your first home, or it's awful hard to get the money, depending on the background, what your economic background is, to get a down payment. So we're going to guarantee first-term home buyers a $15,000 down payment for first-term home buyers. In addition to that, what all the studies now show, and I've been arguing this for a long time, is young black entrepreneurs are just as successful as white entrepreneurs or anyone else given a shot. But you can't get the money. Where do you go to get the startup money? So what President Obama and I did, we had a program where we took $1.5 billion, and we invested it in all the SBAs around the country, in the state SBAs, small business associations, and that generated $30 billion came off the sideline. Because if you have a guarantee of $200,000 for your new startup enterprise, young entrepreneur, you're going to be able to attract, if it's government money as a guarantee, you'll be able to attract another $100,000. It generated $30 billion. Well, I'm changing that program, and I'll get this done without much trouble, I believe, in the Congress, from $1.5 billion to $30 billion to $30 billion. That'll take $300 billion off the sideline and grow, because and for example, if you, in fact, and I were the same age, and we split our differences and we were the same age, and we went to the same builder to buy us each the same home, but my home was in a white neighborhood on one side of a highway, and yours is in a black neighborhood, same exact home. Your home will start off being valued 29% less than my home. Yet your insurance for that home will be higher. You'll be taxed more for it. We've got to end this. That's what got me involved in politics in the first place, a thing called redlining. We can change so much, that we can do so much to change the circumstances to give people a real opportunity.
Cedric, did you hear what you needed?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, do you hear what you needed to hear?
I think so.
Okay. Well, there's a lot more if you're going to hang around afterwards, I'll tell you more.
Okay.
Let's get it. No, but I really mean it. It is the key. Look, this is the way every other, how do most, like my dad, he lost his job up in Scranton. And it took him 3 years to be able to move down to Delaware, to Claymont, Delaware, a little steel town, and send us home to our grandpop to live with him. We finally got back. We lived in apartments, became 6 and 8 housing. Much later it wasn't. It was just normal apartments. But it took him 5 years to be able to buy a home. Well, we bought a 3-bedroom home with 4 kids and a grandpop living with us, but it accumulated wealth. You build up wealth. That's how middle-class folks make it. They build up wealth. Then he was able to borrow a little against that to be able to help us get to school, those kinds of things. It's about accumulating wealth. And you're behind an 8 ball. The vast majority of people of color are behind an 8 ball. And it's the same way what's going on now with all this money that's been voted. What's happened? You go to the bank if you're a black businessman, and the president fired the only inspector general to oversee all this help coming from the Congress. And what happens? You go in and they say, do you have an account here? No. Do you have a credit card with this? No. Have you borrowed from us before? No. We bail these suckers out. They're not liable for any of the money. But they still won't run it. They still won't lend it to you. We got to change that. It's about accumulating wealth.
That is a remarkable exchange. I mean, where do you ever get a candidate of any party in the United States in a live televised broadcast who spends nearly 7 minutes talking to a young black man and trying to address his concerns? It just doesn't happen. He spent more time talking to that young brother than he did spend time talking to anybody else in that live televised broadcast last night. Joe Biden. Joe Biden was giving that brother an honest answer to his questions and concerns. And you know what Joe Biden didn't do that I really appreciated? He didn't start off with the line that the candidate I supported started off with when he would usually answer a question like this. He didn't start off with, white supremacy is the thing that's... Yes, it is, and I've spoken about it here. I spoke about it here yesterday with Manju Kulkarni. But Bernie Sanders did this all the time. And although I am a big supporter of Bernie's from 2016 and from the primaries here in 2020, earlier this year, one thing I really criticized Bernie on, or have criticized him on, is that he does not address the issues of race honestly enough. He doesn't speak about them I'll put it like this. He does not sufficiently dig deep on the issue. He skirts it and pivots back to economics. Joe Biden talked about money, but he dealt with it in the institutional ways that it really operates when it comes to institutionalized racism in this country, systemic racism. And Joe Biden didn't start off with, we have an institutionally racist country, we have an institutionally No. I think that young brother realizes and understands that the country is institutionally racist and that there is systemic racism. But in the answer that you just heard from Joe Biden from last night's Biden town hall in Philadelphia on ABC News, you did not hear, at the best of my memory at least, you did not hear Joe Biden talking about, we have systemic and institutionalized racism and da-da-da-da. You didn't hear that. You heard a man trying to give an honest answer to that young brother, that young black man's questions. And even at the end when George Stephanopoulos interrupted and said, and his name was Cedric. Cedric was being asked by Stephanopoulos, excuse me. Well, Cedric, did that answer? Did you get a sense he answered your question? And you can kind of see, you heard it. You have to watch the expression too on his face. But you heard him say, I kind of get it. I get it. And you heard Joe Biden say, look, you know what? I can speak more with you If you want to hear more, I can talk more to you after the event's over. And I mean, who does that? I don't know of too many candidates who come on and do these town halls live and then speak afterwards, which is what Joe Biden did. He spoke for at least after the official televised event had ended. ABC did a post-town hall wrap-up, and there was Joe Biden still on the stage, still answering questions, still taking questions. And he did so for at least another 40 minutes after the end of the town hall that had been televised. There were people still asking him questions when the camera was off. I mean, the camera was on because you could see it if you were watching ABC like I was. He was still fielding questions, and while the commentators and the pundits were nattering on, although there was one person there who I thought was really, really good, and you'll hear audio from her coming up. But that's what Joe Biden did last night. That's what he is about. Now, I've told you many times I've had my differences with Joe Biden on on some of his policies. The issues I've talked about before, I made it very clear how I felt when it came to the issue of Tara Reade and what she was saying and her allegations. All of those things. I did podcast episodes earlier this year about those issues that are very important. We are now at a very simple decision-making process. Either you want to continue down the road of dancing with a devil who is a dictator, who is destroying this country right before your eyes, or you are in favor of and will vote for Joe Biden, who showed you last night, if you watched it, how clear the choice is. Showed you that he cares about voters. Shows you that he's honest with the voter. Shows you that he really does want to speak to you, not speak at you. The mere fact that that young brother said, well, is better than nothing at all. You know what? You know what that shows me, or what that sounds to me like, since I just played that to you? It sounds to me like someone who could be persuaded and who is at least open to listening to Joe Biden some more. Remember when I said earlier about we have to start to really listen to people who are undecided voters, the few of them that are left out here? Well, that's what we have to do. And for those people who are progressives out there, I'm a progressive. And there are many different types of progressive, by the way. They are not all a monolith either. Just like black voters aren't a monolith. No one is really a monolith, really. Come on. I mean, we know who is a monolith, and it's the rich ruling class. Their interest is very clear what their interest is. And the hierarchy of the GOP and the Republican Party, we know what they're interested in. So they are a monolith in that way. I'm going to get to Ben Sass in a few minutes, though. But let me just say this. For those progressives out there who are like, no, I'm not really, Joe Biden, yeah, he's a centrist. I can't vote for a centrist. Let me tell you something. This is not just about voting. This is not about a centrist or a Republican. This is about whether you want to even have the choice to vote or not. This is about so many things. This is about healthcare. This is about Social Security. This is about Medicare. This is about education. This is about having any kind of choice in this country. This is about whether or not if you're married, are you married? Are you a progressive who's married? Well, this is about whether or not you and your spouse can even have contraception in your own home, in your bedroom. You tell me about, oh, well, I don't know if I can vote. You have Amy Coney Barrett, a Republican appointee, a Trump appointee, who is not even telling you, can't even really give a straight answer, doesn't give a straight answer to whether or not Roe versus Wade, and specifically in my example now, Griswold versus Connecticut, whether that is the law of the land or not. She can't even get, she's a judge, she's a federal judge, and she can't give you an answer to that question. Griswold versus Connecticut is 1968, I believe. Could be 66, could be 68, could be 65. It's one of those years, 67. It's one of those years. I think it's 66 or 67 or 68. One of those 3 years, Griswold versus Connecticut. I should remember this from my days in law school. I mean, I remember that case in law school, Griswold versus Connecticut. And it held that married couples have the right to access to contraception, that they are allowed to use it, they can possess it. And you're telling me, if you're a progressive and you're married, that, well, you know, Amy Coney Barrett couldn't give you a straight answer on whether that was decided by the Supreme Court and if it's the law of the land. She could not give you an answer, straight answer to that. So if you are a progressive who is married and are actually going, well, I don't know if I can really vote for Joe Biden. Ooh, and my guy, Bernie, he's not there anymore. And I'm a Bernie or bust. I'm a Bernie till I die guy. Well, let me tell you something, Bernie till I die guy or gal or person, whomever, whether you're whether you're a dyed-in-the-wool, I'm not voting for any establishment candidate ever kind of person, or whether you're not. But if you're having doubts, think about the issues. This is more than about one human being. These cults, whether it's the Trump cult, the Bernie cult, whomever cult, and they're different types of cults. One of them is one that's going to kill you. This death cult called Donald Trump. He's killed over 220,000 people. And you're going to sit neutrally like Sweden? And look what neutrality got Sweden this year. Herd immunity that has killed lots of people in Sweden? Is that where you want to sit? On a fence? I know one thing. This is about a country, not about any one candidate, quite frankly. Joe Biden is embodying what the future of the country is. He's hired, forgive me for using the word hired, he has picked a black woman to be his vice presidential running mate. I think that should tell you something about what the future is looking like in this country. This is about a group of us all, black, Asian, Latinx, Native, white. This ain't just about one person. Oh, I can't vote for Biden. Look at what is at stake. I don't agree with everything that Joe Biden does. I am not happy that he is against the Green New Deal, although he's kind of shifted on that back and forth. And you'll hear that in a clip coming. I'm not happy that he is not a supporter of Medicare for all. I'm not happy that he is somebody who is doing fracking. But that means now that because I'm not happy with those three things, I don't vote for him at all? Because, I mean, really, we're going to use the 4 or 5 things we disagree with him on, and the other maybe 70% or 65% of things that I agree with him on, I'm going to throw all the 65, 70% out because there's 30% I don't agree with him on? Come on, folks. Come on. You know the truth of this. Don't allow yourself to fall into that trap. And don't allow yourself, oh, well, Trump's going to cut my taxes because I'm doing so well financially. Don't allow that selfishness to stop you from doing what you know is the right thing. This country has had to sacrifice this year. And there's still some lazy people who choose not to. They don't want to put on a mask. Well, heck, nobody likes to wear a mask in San Francisco when it's 92 degrees outside. But you know what? That's what we have to do because it means saving lives. So you do it. You do it. This isn't even really a sacrifice, putting on a mask, compared to what people were doing in World War II, compared to what people were doing in World War I, compared to what was going on during the Republican Great Depression of the 1920s and the early 1930s. Come on. And we are in a depression era right now. This is the second Republican Great Depression. You got food lines up and down the country, across the country, caravans of people waiting for food. This is under Donald Trump. Oh, but I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden. I don't know. I don't care about the food lines. I know that people are selfish. We all have selfish tendencies, right? But come on now. There can't be a clearer contrast here. There can't be a clearer. This is far clearer than 2016. You've had 4 years to see that. You've had 4 years now to see the damage, the detritus, the dead bodies in hospital wards, in corridors, people wearing Jason hockey masks as they treat people with coronavirus because Donald Trump and that pox-ridden administration that he is the crime boss of didn't care to send any PPE to any of these states. And it's still happening. 18 plus tons of PPE were sent to China in February. In fact, on the same day that he spoke to Bob Woodward about how bad this was in America, this coronavirus, how deadly it was, his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, sent 18 tons of PPE and masks and other equipment to China. Do you understand? You cannot be neutral. Or you cannot be so selfish. Joe Biden can be persuaded. Joe Biden will at least listen to you, like he listened to that young brother last night. He will at least listen. He can be pushed. It has happened. The Sunrise Movement, the environmental youth movement, a great organization, the Sunrise Movement, they had backed Bernie. Joe Biden's representatives and Joe Biden met with the Sunrise Movement, and they carved out an accord. And the Sunrise Movement said, yeah, okay, we'll do this. Now they're supporting Joe Biden. This guy can be pushed. He can be pushed. The difference is the other guy that's in there now in the White House, he isn't listening even to his own closest advisors. So many people have either been fired from that administration or have left on principle. They've had enough. And if you've got Republicans jumping ship and leaving that administration and speaking out against it in the numbers that they have over these last 4 years, even this year, including Olivia Troy, including Elizabeth Newman, both of whom are diehard Republicans. They never voted anywhere else in their life but Republican. Both of them were in that administration this year. They both were close to Trump. They were in there with Pence and Trump, or both. It doesn't matter. They were in there in the heartbeat of the administration. They didn't like what they saw. This guy will not listen to anybody. Donald Trump will not listen to anyone but Fox News and Rush Limbaugh and these other wackadoodles who are very dangerous. QAnon and these OAN people. These are evil, destructive human beings who the FBI, in the case of QAnon, says is one of the biggest domestic terrorism threats the country has. QAnon. And they're running candidates. Now is not the time to be neutral. Donald Trump isn't listening to anybody but Fox News. He won't even listen to his advisors. This is why he is now becoming even more unhinged. He won't listen. You really do? Do you really want 4 more years of that? He won't leave. If he were to get 4 more years now in this election, he will not leave the White House. He won't even promise that there'll be a peaceful transfer. There's gonna be a peaceful transfer of power. There is. He's trying to deter you. Come on, people. You can't fall for this con man again. He's been conning America and been conning many people in Trump University for years. They had to shut Trump University down. This is a cult. And the thing is that the corporate news media, and I'll get to them as well, they report on this like it's just an ordinary news story. Joe Biden will listen. He will have a long conversation with you. He met with the family of Jacob Blake. He met with the family of Ahmaud Arbery. He met with the family of Breonna Taylor. He's spoken to them. This guy will listen. And he'll listen to you too. Whether you agree or not, you may have agreements, you may not, but he's going to listen. He is going to listen. And what we need right now is people who will listen and will act on our behalf. And people we can push. Joe Biden is someone who can be pushed. If the Sunrise Movement, a youth group, a youth environmental group, very good group, excellent group, who care about the environment, who care about slowing down climate violence. They care about those issues. They care about global warming and trying to slow that down and doing things that we can try, because it's here. We can't stop it, but we can slow this down perhaps. We can put in energy standards and all kinds of things that will help make us a healthier nation environmentally. Donald Trump wants to pollute and pollute and pollute. Joe Biden can be pushed. He can. If the Sunrise Movement can do it, all of us can. As progressives, we can do that. Even if you're not a progressive, you can push him. I'm telling you, you can. Heck, you know why I'm telling you the truth? You know why that's the truth? Is because this year you had a lot of black women and black men like myself who said that Joe Biden has got to pick a black woman as vice president. Now, there were black women who were saying this before I was. I mean, there were black women saying this before George Floyd. Now, after George Floyd, I started to get in on that too. That Joe Biden could not afford to be picking a woman who was not black. And I tweeted Joe Biden over and over and over. Joe, you better pick a black woman. Joe, You better do that. Joe, this is the key to you winning this election. Pick a black woman. Black women have got you to the dance, and they are chiefly and solely responsible for you being in the position you are in now. Joe, you have to do it. There were black women who wrote the Washington Post, some very prominent black women in organizations that have been very influential and very good organizations, forward-thinking organizations. People got on TV. The sisters got on TV. Hey, this is what you have to do, Joe. He's got to do this. We're the ones that brought him here. Black women vote for the Democratic Party overwhelmingly. They've done it forever. 99% of black women voting Democratic. I spoke to some of them at a recent Phonebank for Joe Biden. I phone banked for him, and you can too. Well, you can phone bank for Color of Change, a great organization dedicated to black folks, black organization. Color of Change it's headed by Rashad Robinson. Talk to black voters like that young brother you heard. Talk to him. You talk to them. They are sign up with Color of Change. You can find them on Twitter at Color of Change. Find them. They are their Political Action Committee. Go search them. Go search for Color of Change. Sign up this weekend to talk to black voters, because there are still some who are undecided. Voters, period, but black voters in particular, we need them. We need all voters, but black voters, particularly some of these black men who are maybe under 35, like this brother was, Cedric, that Joe Biden addressed last night, that I played for you just now, who maybe, still on the fence. The older black folk are not on the fence. Older black folk, older black men are freaking clear. They're the ones standing on these lines for 12 hours, for goodness sake. And black women are too. Older black women and younger black women. They know what time it is. I'm telling you, this nonsense with Candace Owens, do not be fooled. This stuff with Ice Cube, do not be seduced or fooled. This stuff with Kanye West, do not be seduced or fooled. These people are making millions of dollars. Candace Owens is well off. Conservative, well off. She's making lots of money. Ice Cube, Ice Cube is well off. Lots of money. Kanye West, with all his problems, he is well off. Lots of money. They are not advocating in the interests of black people. They're not. They're advocating in the interests of money. In the interests of Donald Trump, which is tax cuts for billionaires and as many federal judges who can make your life a misery as possible for the rest of your life. Please don't sit here and talk about being neutral. Don't be Sweden. Not this time. At least for once. Don't be Sweden. I'm Omar Moore, and of course, you know what I've been talking a lot about lately on the Politicrat Daily Podcast, and it's early voting, the importance of voting early. You can't get away from it. I think the ads are everywhere, urging people to plan their vote, to vote early. You've heard some of these ads, these very same ads, on this very podcast. And by the way, I thank you for listening. And I also want you to do something for me, if you could please. Make sure you vote early. And make sure you pop by the Politicrat online store. It has a range of colorful Vote Early t-shirts designed by yours truly in different colors, with more colors to come. So send a colorful and important message. to vote early. A range of t-shirts, different colors, and for women, men, unisex. These t-shirts are available right now at the Politicrat online store in different colors. 7 at the moment, 7 different colors, and more to come. And affordable prices as well. And in all different kinds of sizes. So if you want to send a message to vote early, and every time, believe me, when I wear this shirt, I always get people coming up to me or remarking about the shirt or about their agreement that it is important to vote early. It never fails. Every time I wear these shirts, I always get some kind of response. And even if I don't, I know that people who see the shirt get to thinking, vote early. The seed has been planted. And it is so important, now more than ever before, in this very highly consequential election. Elections really do have consequences, so make sure you vote early. And make sure you stop by the Politicrat online t-shirt store and shop the Vote Early t-shirt color collection exclusively from yours truly at the Politicrat at the-politicrat.myshopify.com. Thank you. So, yeah, welcome back. So yeah, Joe Biden picked Kamala Harris as his vice president. So if that's not an example, if that's not an example of being pushed, of that Joe Biden can be pushed, nothing is. Nothing is. Joe Biden can be pushed. So let's get to it. And for those undecideds out there, we need you to vote. And for those people who want to be persuaders, please get in touch with any organization. I highlight Color of Change because I think that they, among many others, are doing really important and vital work in the Black community to really get the Black community, particularly the younger Black community, because Black folk who are over 50 are very clear about voting. They're very clear. They know the sacrifices they themselves have sacrificed. They know about the sacrifices of the 1960s. So, and John Lewis, who passed away just this year, just a few months ago, gave us the marching orders. So they know. People who are 50 or above get an idea of that. They get it. People who are maybe 40 and above do. But anybody under 40, those are the kinds of people that Color of Change, Black people under the age of 40, that's the demographic that Color of Change and others, but particularly Color of Change, have been working very hard to try to get to vote. And they've been very successful overall. They really have. And so that's why I say go to Color of Change. And really, that's a really good, important organization. I'm telling you, they are that's an organization that, they are really important. So I urge you to seek them out. I really do. Color of Change is an organization that has phone banking into events all over the country targeted to the Black community. You can call up Black voters all over the country and encourage them to get out and vote. Listen to them. Have a conversation with them if they have the time. Events all over the country are happening. All over this state of California and all over the country, Las Vegas, Nevada, Kansas, Texas, Wisconsin, Illinois, so many places all over the country. There's these Black Joy drive-ins, Black Joy phone banks. This is critical. If you're somebody who believes in voting, believes in getting people to come out to vote, and believes that they can persuade people, that they are good at talking to the needs of people, and also, very importantly, good at listening, you want to sign up and get involved with Color of Change. This is a great opportunity for you, whoever you are. you really should be joining up with Color of Change. They're on Twitter at Color of Change. I believe there's also at Color of Change PAC. You can go Google, search engine these folks, these great people. Color of Change. They've been doing some extraordinary work. And, I hope to get somebody on from that organization, whether it's Rashad Robinson himself or whether it's someone else. I really would like to speak to them because you need to hear about them. You need to hear what they're doing and the kinds of successes that they have done. And we've got so much work to do these final 18 days of voting. So if you've already voted, especially if you've already voted, please join up with Color of Change to get black voters out to vote. Or if you want to, and phone bank with Joe Biden, phone bank with Every Town for America, dealing with gun sense. If you're one of the people who is passionate about having gun sense legislation, and I'm one of them, phone bank with Every Town. Mums Demand, Every Town. We can phone bank for all these organizations. I definitely think Color of Change is one I put at the top of the list because there are still some black males, some black men, like the brother you heard earlier, who need to be really persuaded to vote. And there are other people who are in that boat too, who are like, when I wore my Vote Early t-shirt the other day, I forget which one it was. They're available on sale now. I forgot which one it was. It might have been the purple one that I wore. And I was walking the streets of San Francisco, and there these two young girls, I think young women. I wouldn't say they were girls. These are young women. They're probably 19, 20, 21. And I think both of them were Asian, if I remember correctly. And one of them saw my t-shirt, and she said it loudly so I could hear. As I was walking past her, she said to her friend, or whomever it was, "Are you going to vote?" That's what she said. Are you going to vote? Are you voting? And for me, it was good that I heard that there was some engagement because she wasn't really engaging with me, although she said it loud enough for me to hear. And I'm not looking for a compliment for my shirt. What I'm actually looking for is something like that. That even though I kind of said, you have to ask, I'm glad that she did ask out loud. Because at least now she saw my t-shirt and it got her to thinking to even ask the question in the first place. And so I'm thankful for that. That is what I'd love to hear more of, rather than, well, your shirt's great. Case in point, I heard someone yesterday walked up to me. I was wearing a shirt. I think it was a yellow Vote Early shirt. And you can get them on the Politicrat online store, by the way. And you just go to www.the-politicrat.myshopify.com. A link is in the liner notes for this episode. But I was wearing a yellow Vote Early t-shirt that I designed, Vote Early t-shirt, and an older white woman comes up to me and says, "Yes, I voted, and my friend voted on Tuesday." And she said, you need to wear that shirt. You don't need to wear that shirt in California. You need to wear it in another place, in other places. And I kind of laughed and said, "Yeah, well, yeah, you're right there." But then again, I said, but the shirt, the message needs to go out everywhere. And then she agreed with me. And I should have said, well, I don't really need to wear this shirt everywhere because all over the country right now, people are waiting in lines for 8, 9, 10, 12 hours to vote. 4 hours, 5 hours, 6, 8 hours to vote. So maybe I don't need to wear that shirt in Georgia or Texas or Illinois or Indiana or Ohio or Virginia. Maybe I don't need to, right? But I just need to wear it, period. Because people have to understand. Because if those two young women right here in San Francisco can actually have that conversation, and one of them actually says, "Are you voting? Are you going to vote?" Then I've done my job. At least I've started to do my job. That is the road to persuasion. And that is what we need to do. 18 days of voting remain. And I urge everybody who has not yet voted to vote right now. Early voting is going on now in at least 45 states. And as I may have said earlier, Louisiana and Washington State have joined that list. So please, folks, this is it now. The New York Times came out with an editorial today saying, end this national crisis, end our national crisis. And they went through a laundry list of reasons why you have to vote for Joe Biden and get rid of Donald Trump. They went through a load of things of reminding voters why Donald Trump is the nightmare, the wrong choice. It was just incredible. You got to read that. I'll link to that as well, by the way. So much to link to. And I apologize. Some of the things this week that I said I would link to have not yet appeared in some of these episodes. I haven't linked to them. So I am going to do that. So in the next day or so, expect to see this week's episodes with additional links to them in the liner notes. And I apologize to you because I had said, they're going to be linked. There are some things that have been linked, but there are some that have not. So I will put that right in the next day or so. But this is the time now to persuade. If you've voted already, this is the time to get in those phone banks. Get involved in texting. If you don't want to get on the phone and talk to people, there is an option. There are places like Joe Biden's campaign and others where you can text bank. Send text messages to people. If you want to connect with voters, though, I think the best way to do it, since you can't really go door to door, and I know some campaign, I know Trump's campaign, in some places they are going door to door. I would not be doing that. But if I just wouldn't be doing that. That's just not good. I mean, even if you're wearing a mask with the rates of infection going up, that's just not smart. See, these guys on the Trump campaign, they don't care about you. The fact that they're going door to door with masks. Now, I know there are Biden people that are probably doing the same. But I really think that you need to get in touch with voters over the phone. And plus, you can get through a lot more voters in terms of talking to them on the phone than if you go door to door. Although door to door is the best, but it's a pandemic. People probably won't even really want to talk. I mean, some people might. But you want to get on the phone, get on the horn. Some may hang up on you, some may not, but get involved in some way. Don't let what you can't do stop what you can do. Don't let any of that happen. This is the difference between this election and the one 4 years ago, is that people are motivated this year, this time around, for all kinds of reasons. There's 3 or 4 big reasons, but, your job's been lost. The economy stinks. This guy in the White House has destroyed the country. The deep divisions in the country. What happened to George Floyd, and you all saw it. And the white people who saw it, finally, those white people who still weren't awakened yet, have finally woken up. We've seen it, right? There are still white people who refuse to believe that the police are doing these things. And they belong on the other side of the street with, the QAnon folk, the Donald Trump cult, death cult. All right, there's the people who think, systemic racism doesn't exist. That's a dwindling minority of people, by the way. But let me tell you something. There are people, white people, black people, everybody who are in these streets still out there protesting. And they're voting now. That's another form of protest, is your vote, and they're doing it. Make no mistake about it, people. If we keep doing what we're doing here across the country, you're going to see this orange menace gone. And although the next couple of months before then may be a rough ride, you have made your voice heard. You got to get out there and vote. And you've got to persuade others to do the same.
Okay, guys, I'm going over here and get my judge. I got my grown folks hair on. I got my savage clothes on. I'm ready for this damn heat. And I'm ready for these people. Because I'm going to vote. And ain't shit going to stop me. Not this sun, not this heat. And y'all need to go on and get y'all judge and get y'all vote on. Because let me show you. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm going to get my damn judge. They could stand out there for 15 hours. I got my chair. They could stand out there for 24 hours. I got my snacks. I ain't going to play with these hoes. I'm going to vote. And I said, you go vote too.
There is simply so much more to talk about. And I'm going to have to break a promise here. The clips of the other clips of the Biden town hall, I'm going to have to leave for another episode at this point. And otherwise, we'll have a very, very long episode here. So I'm going to have to leave that, unfortunately, for another time. And some of the things that I had scheduled to talk about, I'm going to postpone. But you heard the woman there talking about getting her jush on, which is actually a phrase that was invented by drag queens. Your jush. And get your vote on, please. Get your vote on. That's the best thing I can tell you for right now. Make sure you vote, please. One more segment, and that'll be it for this episode. Stay tuned.
When Joe Biden wants an update on the virus, he calls on the nation's top health experts. Working together for all Americans is what Joe does. When writing his healthcare plan, Joe Biden worked with both doctors and patients to make healthcare affordable by lowering premiums, reducing drug costs, and protecting people with pre-existing conditions. Joe listened to both small business owners and workers to create his economic plan that cuts taxes for middle-class families, creates 18 million new jobs in his first term, and raises wages by as much as $15,000 a year. Joe Biden's plans will help working families immediately by making the super rich finally pay their fair share. For Joe, it's never been about ego. It's always been about the work he can do for working families. It's what he's always done. Joe Biden brings everyone to the table and gets it done.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
One more thing I want to say, two more things. Don't be played by this corporate news media who keep flooding you with Trump all the time. Most of the country, the vast majority, does not support Donald Trump. The corporates do, because for obvious reasons, he's going to cut their taxes some more. But for the rest of us, the 99% of us, the 98% of us, please, don't be seduced by the fool. The people out there, many of you perhaps who watched The Apprentice, but didn't complain about Donald Trump's misogyny or racism and didn't call NBC to get him off the air then, you have a chance to get him off the air now. Get him out of the White House now. When his term officially ends, we hope, in January of next year. Because we've got to get rid of this guy. Get him out of there. Too much damage has been done. Too much. Vote Joe Biden. Vote Joe Biden right now. And not only that, I want to say to Vice Presidential candidate and hopefully future Vice President Kamala Harris, I wish your staff a speedy recovery, both of whom tested positive the day or so ago for coronavirus. These two people, one was a person who I think flew a campaign plane. The other one is a communications director or staffer who works with Kamala Harris's campaign. So, look, speedy recovery to both of those individuals. Kamala Harris herself has tested negative for weeks and weeks, including yesterday. and she's done at least 2 tests a day since early October. So, she's been negative all the way through and then continued for that. Also for Joe Biden as well, who's been tested negative as well throughout. So look, everybody be safe and be well. Thank you for being with me here today and listening. Your support is so appreciated. It really is. Buy a t-shirt online at the Politicrat online store. I want to thank again Chris Hollins, the Harris County clerk in Texas, for his time. And to everybody who supports this podcast, please subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at ThePopcorn, REEL. Talk about this podcast. More guests. We're getting more guests. People are coming on, and there'll be more of it coming up in the next few days as we get closer to the end of this election season. Please vote and tell your friends and family to do the same. Thank you very much for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.